the pre-show can actually begin. I thought we'd start with the pre-show with the simple things. You both made it from your home country or where you currently live, from there to the United States and back during crazy travel season. So I just want to congratulate you both. So good job.
Thank you.
You know, I will just give you
that.
both because you're I can see that you're in your places before, so you did it. You know, I don't know how hard it was, but you did it. So good job.
Well, you know, traveling with 3 kids is challenging, as Matt Ray knows. But man, traveling with an infant is not an infant.
That's next level.
A toddler. But yeah, it's okay. It's fine. It's you know, we were there 3 weeks, and man, it was. I think this is like one of the few vacations that I was not ready to be over. It was nice being home.
My vacation was stressful. Yeah,
well, you were like emptying a storage shed or something, right?
Yeah, I downsized my storage unit from 20 by 10 to a 15 by 10. So about half a dozen trips to the unit, half a dozen trips to Goodwill.
Now, did you find anything that you'd forgotten about that you've ended up taking home?
Oh, well, so we went out there with 3 bags, you know, like 3 suitcases, and you know, we had Christmas presents and stuff that we brought there. And then inside those bags, we had duffel bags, and I got another 2 bags out of storage. And so we ended up bringing 8 bags back. So I brought back just under 400 pounds of stuff.
Wow. 400 pounds. Is that close?
I mean, yeah, some of that is what we brought over, right?
I wanted you to use the IKEA bags. I wanted a full test of that. So next time I want you to use the blue IKEA bag.
I was trying not to buy new stuff, so I don't have the matching IKEA furniture luggage set.
No, I get it. I'm with you.
Well, you know, we use some of the famous 12, not Stanley, Samsonite red and black duffel bags that we moved here with.
Ooh, yeah.
And they've been on about 4 or 5 journeys, and some of them, I'm not gonna lie, some of them have duct tape on them. So
yeah, one of them had duct tape.
I gotta see though. I almost would like to see the itemization of like. So you took all this stuff that's been in storage, you brought it all the way over. It's like if we did a full ROI Monte Carlo simulation on this, would we find that we lost money potentially on these items?
Well, you mean like for paying for 6 years of storage?
And then, 6 years of storage.
I had to pay 1 bag. I had to pay for 1 bag to come across. So
okay, but I just did the whole thing. The time and effort of like storing it, packing it, bringing it to Australia, getting it to your home, unpacking it, whatever. Like if we did the full thing, if we did the full ROI analysis, would we find that like that was like maybe you should have just got rid of it all? What are those? I can't read them.
I got code reading, the open source perspective. Yeah, and
one of the items you're saying was a book. I'm going to immediately say you lost money on that.
No. These are expensive books. But that's the thing. As I went through my storage, I got rid of my CS books. So like all the books from being a student, you know, that was hundreds of dollars.
What if you want to learn how to program in Java 1.1 though?
Well, I already got rid of those books, but it was like, you know, foundations of algorithms and logic sets and recursion.
Was there a Gang of 4? The old Gang of 4, baby? Design patterns? That's a good one. I can't ever throw. I think I still have a couple copies of that laying around. I don't know why.
I put the Gang of 4 in the keep pile. So,
that's a good
but I don't
one.
think I brought it, which is funny.
I don't think you can. You just can't ever throw that book out. That book's like you just.
Well, that's what's funny is like I didn't bring it back to Australia. I just put it back in storage.
Oh yeah, well, it's probably an heirloom that you can give to your grandchildren. You know.
Well, but you know, the one book I did bring back is the Visual Display of Quantitative Information by Tufte. That's fun. A banger. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that one's overrated. Personally, I think it's a little overrated myself. But design patterns. I actually think you could give this to your grandchildren and it will still be valid. Be like, yep, really not much has been. I mean, there's lots of new technology, but like these are pretty much.
That's the thing about the CS books. The other CS books I got rid of is like none of these have changed, right?
Yeah. Like I think that and like a calculus book, right? Like you always just keep that around. You're like, never know when I'm going to need to look at that derivative again. Like you're always like, never do. You're like,
well, that's the thing. When I got my undergrad and then 8 years later, I got my master's, or I started my master's, and I had to dig up all those books, and I think I ended up rebuying one of them.
That's right. Keep your calculus books. That's the recommendation, everyone. Keep your calculus book. keep design patterns. I think that's it. I don't know. I don't think there's anything else.
Code
Really. I
reading.
guess statistics. If you know what, a stats book, but then everyone
there was
hates
a
stats.
book. Yeah.
So it's hard to keep the stats book because you hate it so much. As soon as you like finish, you're like, I never want to learn.
I think that's the one. I think that's the one that I had to rebuy.
Right.
It was
Well, that's the thing. Like, you take statistics to only learn. You don't ever want to have to do real statistics. Like, anything beyond an average is just like, no, I'm out.
Can't you just do that in a spreadsheet now? Just like, equal sign statistics, and then it does it.
I think you just chat GPT it, right? You're like,
that probably would be the better way.
Numbers, and it's like.
Once you get beyond the Gaussian distribution and statistics, it's too complicated. Stop. Yeah. Just don't. Like maybe a power law. Maybe remember what the power law graph looks like, but that's it. Get out. Don't learn. Like, people get their PhD in statistics. I mean, they're good people, but you don't want to be around them.
Well, that's what got me out of my first major. My first major was civil engineering, and the next semester I was looking at taking traffic theory, a statistical view.
Well, I do not have any graduate degrees, but from those that I understand, regardless of the field of study, they basically all have to learn statistics because if they're doing studies and stuff. And so therefore, I would not get a graduate degree in anything. I wouldn't either. I'd be like, that's too.
My wife's
like, I already graduated. I don't need a graduate
I am not
degree.
going to run a study and learn the statistics to then summarize my results in a nice paper. I will not be doing that. Well, I will do a podcast reading other people's statistics and papers. Good. That I will do.
I finally, I don't know if I learned, but I followed. We didn't even visit our storage locker. And while my wife and children did a fair amount of shopping, my kids just got a bunch of gifts for Christmas. That's a challenging thing.
That's part of the 400 pounds.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Like, especially if people are getting some pretty choice Lego sets, you're just like, I don't know. And then why do we actually need a Clue board game? I mean, I know it's in English, but let's be honest.
You do, because in Europe they're going to call it Cluedo.
Could have been worse. Could have gotten Monopoly again.
We got that too.
Again. I have so many Monopolies.
Yeah. Anyways, we didn't even visit our storage thing, and like, I couldn't come up with things that I wanted to buy. I mean, there were a few things, like I wanted some sweatpants. So you go to Costco and you're like, well, I'm gonna get like a pack of sweatpants, sure. But I have to say, there is an interesting what is this like vintage brand or waterproof brand? Is that like a Costco only brand? These are like brands I've seen at Costco in clothing forever. And I've never seen them anywhere else but Costco. I'm convinced they're just made up. And I also got some Banana Republic pants at Costco, but they do not fit like Banana Republic pants. It's like Banana Republic pants for like the Academy set. They're like comfortable and baggy. They don't fit tight. So I think that Banana Republic maybe like outsourced making some pants so they could sell them at Costco.
Probably.
Oh, that for sure. I'm sure. Yeah, for sure. And they're creating some.
The Costco people were like, "Listen, they can't be tight. No one's gonna buy that shit here."
I think that's true. I think that's pretty much how the conversation went, right? Absolutely. Because I would say, like, unless it's a Kirkland brand or unless it literally says Costco, like most of those brands are like they're real brands, but they'll be at Costco either because they didn't make their numbers, right? Like Banana Republic, they didn't make their numbers, or like, call Costco, let's get it in there. Let's get some pants in there that we maybe don't want to make. Yeah. Or there's just extra. Like every time you see like Under Armour, like Banana Republic, some of the nicer brands, you'll see some like Spider skiing stuff. You're like, yep, they didn't sell.
Is that a real brand? I guess so.
Spider, Spider's like a high-end ski brand, right? So like if you buy that on the slopes, it's like Spider gloves are pretty expensive, right? But then it's like, well, when they're at the Costco, they're like, the ski season's not going so well for Spider.
I see.
They make the numbers.
That's interesting. I wonder if you could do a multi-year study, maybe with statistics. I'm not sure. And you mapped out when you see a Costco brand, you see a brand in Costco in clothing, does that indicate a buy or sell on the stock for that quarter? Like there's maybe some sort of I don't know. I never had to take calculus, let alone statistics. So I don't know if there's some sort of statistical correlation if your R equals 0.98 or something. Is that anything? Black Swan?
A correlation of one. I would say this, I think a rule of thumb is if you believe the brand is premium, which in itself, this could be a whole nother discussion, right? But like, if you believe it's a brand's premium, and maybe let's say this way, a brand that is typically sold in like department stores or stores that are going to mark it up, right? Quite a bit, and you see it in Costco, that would generally be like a sell sign to me, right?
Okay.
Now, if you see like a lower end brand, right? They just may be doing like, hey, this is just another supplier. We just, we built some socks in a Costco market, but they're basically making the same margin. But I would say, like, anytime I see Under Armour, Spider, Banana Republic, some J. Crew, something like that, you're like, things aren't, it's the retail's not going so well.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a whole lot of Puma at the Costco.
See, like that, I feel like I think Puma's just can't, I think
can't get excited about that.
I think that's just a staple of their strategy, right? It's like, yeah, whatever. Of course, it's going to be there.
All right, so let's get to recording because I got a call in 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. I put a lot of stuff in here. I don't know.
Are you sure I can't come back?
You can either leave. Yeah, no, you can't come back. No, I can't because it's like because it's going to be off. It's going no. Yeah, no, you cannot.
Well, if I mute myself in here, can I go to another video? Can I go to Zoom?
Yes, you can. You can mute yourself.
That would be pretty awesome.
If this goes away, if your box goes away, if you enter in another box, I am not going to let you in. I'm just telling you right now. Like, is this one you can stay on as long as you want, but I will not let you in if a fourth box appears.
All right, I'm
just being honest.
Okay.
Like, I'm not willing to edit that.
So I will mute and turn off my video here, and then we'll see what happends over.
Are you going to wildly gesticulate?
Oh hell yeah! I'll be like, hey,
you can do that. That's right.
It's 2023. Here are my plans.
Just keep the 3 boxes. Just no new boxes. I'm just, again, I don't want you to take offense. If a fourth box shows up, I will not let you in. Just being completely honest right now.
Wow. I thought we had something going here, but
not when it comes to like audio editing. No, I can't. I don't want to do that.
All right, let's well, I will try to get back because it sounds like we're not starting anytime soon, or you're not going to be done by the time I get back.
We should just do a 5-minute episode. Be like, yep, that was it. Just the beginning.
5 minutes and then 10 minutes of outtakes because that's what we just did.
That would be awesome. It'd be great. All right, I don't know. Are these topics interesting to y'all, or you want to do something different? Like,
no, it's great. I looked up things earlier tonight. I'm into it.
All right, let's do it.
I like the work life stuff.
The work life.
Well, I'm ready whenever, Cote. If you
okay.
Southwest Airlines.
Sounds good. Well, I'm back from a 3-week vacation, so I am ready to join the most physically active people on Earth. The Dutch here, the Netherlands folks. Now, I did not go and check the citations for this article or ask my friend ChatGPT to, do a deep study of it with its deep learning, its deep thinking. But it looks like according to a tweet about an article that I just skimmed, that the Dutch get, I guess this is an average. I never took statistics, so I don't really know if it's a mean or a mode or a black swan. But they get about 12.8 hours of exercise a week
That's pretty good.
I think it's probably mostly due to cycling. Also, there's a lot of walking around, if you live in the larger cities. I don't know the percentage of people in the Netherlands who live in a large city versus the country, but I'll tell you what, it's got to be a lot of them because there's a bunch of cows out there in the country. And those hopefully those cows aren't getting too much exercise because we got to eat them. In fact, maybe that's the issue with European meat. Is the cows are also very active when they got to slow down.
They need to chill out.
Yeah, the cows got to chill out, listen to some music, and watch people cycling by. But it is like this is the time of year where cycling is not enjoyable. You got to have gloves. You got to suit up. You never know. You might need to bring your rain pants. A crazy notion, rain pants that you put on your pants, and you really are going to want to bring them with you because it might be perfectly sunny and cold when you leave, and then when you come back, it might be cold and just, as they say, pissing rain. I think I heard one of the epithets one of the favorite epithets that Netherlands people like to say is this weather is cancer. This is cancer season. However,
Wow.
I did go. My final thing here is well, I've got two comments. I did go. The kids went back to school today, so I went bicycling with them. And right before we left, we had the bike mechanic come do a house call, and he replaced the chain on my bike, which had been slipping every now and then and was rusty. And I've got to say, if you hadn't have your bike chain replaced in a while, it's going to give you a huge power boost. It's so much more pleasant to ride the bike. I got some tips on other stuff.
You didn't get like an electric bike for Christmas, or
no, I don't want to.
Is that cheating? Is that when all the Netherlands people start to gain weight because they always start using electric bikes?
I mean, here's what I think. One, like if I actually, I tried to start commuting to work, and it's just too difficult mentally. Well, that's not the right way of putting it. It's just like it's weird.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. But if I did have to commute, it's basically like an hour, let's say 40-minute bike ride, and I think I would probably want an electric bike just to like make it slightly more pleasant. But my thinking on electric bikes is, one, I don't get any exercise except for except for the I don't get exercise except for the gym of life of biking and walking around. So I feel like whenever I'm on the bike, I should not be handicapping myself, or whatever the word is. Like I shouldn't have an electric bike. It's just my chance to actually bike around.
Well, it helps you up all those Netherlands hills.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise known as bridges, I think is. But so while I was in Austin, I noticed there's a lot of bike lane stuff going on there. And, Kim and I were taking some extensive verbal notes that, would be great to share with the hopes and dreams of people who are doing these bike lane things. But I want to summarize them by saying, like, I love the progress. There's a lot of initiative going on. People are doing things. A little asterisk, double dagger footnote there. There are many of those bike lanes I would not bike on. They look like suicide lanes. Like the one
death lanes.
The one that's a specialty.
Absolutely.
There's one. There's on Steck and that street that goes by the Lowe's. Like you exit on Steck going east, and then there's like Lowe's over there, and that Montessori and KXAN, the news channel. There's some street and there's a bike lane there, and I noticed this around town. Like, so there's a bike lane on the side of the road, and then when you come to an intersection, some genius decided the bike should go into the middle of the street, and then the car should go onto the right side of the bike. Yeah. And I think what they call I think what they call that is death. Yeah. That is like a terrible, terrible idea. Like it's. I
can tell you, because you probably didn't have time to drive around Austin and just find those. That pattern is many places in Austin, which is like it is very. Even living here and watching him build it, I was like, seems wrong.
I think what I realized that driving here is that we don't realize it in Texas and however many other states, but turning right on red is like a fundamental human right to Americans, and like
not Australia.
Whereas in the Netherlands, I haven't actually looked this up yet, but there's no right on red. You don't do it.
Yeah, we had this conversation. Yeah.
And so therefore, you don't need that weird bike lane thing, because like the car is not going to turn into the bike. There's just no right on red, right? Yeah. So
but
I can see how you would need it, but it's just a really, really bad idea.
But this gets to the key question I want to ask you about this study, which we should say Brian Gracely, friend of the show, he pointed out to us. So thank you, Brian. But the thing it says, the key, and this is, if you will, in reference to why the Dutch are so successful, is, quote, designing activity into their daily life. And right, so it basically goes on to say the Dutch person, on average, over 1,000 kilometers, right? So my question is it they actually designed it, Cote, or is it just my experience with being in Amsterdam is like, it's just hard to get around in a car. Like it's not that. It's very difficult. So it's more like it'd be kind of the equivalent of New York. It's like, I don't know if New York is designed for more physical activity, or if it's just like, well, you can't really drive a car. Are we being too generous? My question is, are we being too generous? Like the Dutch designed this versus like, well, they just ended up in a place with a lot of canals and it's not a lot of roads.
Yeah. Well, first of all, as always, I'm just reverse engineering this from living here. I don't really know. But I think the simple answer is yes. And the more nuanced answer is you have to consider two types of designed that way or whatever, right? That one of them is the obvious one, which is infrastructure planning. And I think it is very evident that, as I said long ago when I first moved here, Amsterdam hates cars, right? And so like there is an extreme bias towards shuffling cars off to like a major major roads, and also like obviously a very extreme bias for bikes, right? And so, and then cutting streets off, like there's a lot of like, this is a good example. There's a lot of streets that to a car they dead end, but for a bike it's completely passable, right?
And some bollards,
and then there's also it's you'll notice this if you spend some time biking around. There'll be a sign like a one-way street, and so it's like nothing can enter here, except bikes, right? So this is a very common sign that except bikes. So like,
Texas is exactly the opposite.
Yeah, and now the other part of that you have to consider is like the other thing I would think, and this is more of a big city thing than like anything else, is like, like most people like go to the grocery store a lot, right? So it's like, and you don't really drive to the grocery store because there's no fucking parking, right? So like you got to like walk there or bike there. And in fact, I only know one place, but I bet most Dutch people have memorized where you can park for free for 1 or more hours.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Like,
well, that was one of the things that the Peter Molyneux, the guy who made SimCity, he said the first incarnation of it, they included parking. And then they took it out because parking wasted so much space in the game.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, you just can't plan around that stuff. It's terrible. And then, he went on to make, all those other games and left the parking out.
Yeah. I mean, I think the infrastructure thing is like you do sort of like build the system to make it easier to drive, easier and cheaper to bike, right? And so like, even if I'm going like clear across town, like I really don't want to drive. It's just such a hassle.
I like it. Well, kudos. I guess it doesn't, in some ways, maybe in the end, it doesn't matter. It's like kudos to the Dutch. They've embraced it because you're right. Like, as you already highlighted, design of bikes is not the first priority here in Austin, Texas. That is something that is added after the fact. And it is you're never like you never pull up to an intersection and be like, this really worked out well for the bikes.
I think I've mentioned this before, but there's a really good YouTube channel of like some Canadian city urban planner guy.
I've seen it. Yes.
Yeah. He lives here and he has kind of a good overview. He's a little like preachy, if you're not into that, but whatever. But he does point out some good things. And like I had a switcheroo of like, well, this is ridiculous. What a switcheroo in Austin where, there's a lot of, especially in my old neighborhood, Crestview, there's a lot of, whoever sells Austin, those tall white baton things that they bolt onto the road is killing it. They must be like quarter over quarter growth rate must be great. They must have sold billions and billions of those poles to the city of Austin. But, I want to watch, there's this like street, there must be a name for this, narrowing the lanes to make drivers paranoid and make them slow down, which is that happens in the Netherlands a lot, right? It's just not, you don't notice it quite as much because you don't have those big things sticking up out of the ground, right? And instead what you want is like curbs. Like if you have actual curbs in there instead of those big things, I think and then also trams that could just run into your car. That also helps to have that. But I think seeing how that lane narrowing goes is pretty good. And then just as a last thing, I mean, the other thing that would be very difficult for Austin, let alone Texas, to do is like, and you see this, here in the Netherlands, is eventually you just got to be like, you don't have a sidewalk anymore. That's where a bike goes, right? Like you can't like, you got to just like you got to take on new land to be able to bike around, which I think is difficult. Have it not be walkable. But yeah, it will be nice to bike some more, especially when the cancer ends. Well, there was a terrible example of digital transformation. I don't think any of us got trapped by Southwest Airlines. I think we had a friend who while we were in town, we couldn't meet till much later in the week because they were trapped. But it sounds like it sounds like I forget who I was talking with. Maybe they were just summarizing an article, but it sounds like they fully amortized their IT stack, and they were just kind of pushing it along a little bit longer. I haven't seen like a full analysis of what's going on, but I think the systems answer is that they need to put in some way of making sure legacy software doesn't hold them back, that they know how to do the business case for updating things as needed, just to kind of make sure your software fits the needs that you have. But again, I don't know. Has anyone actually figured out what's gone wrong and beyond?
Well, a couple things. I thought this was really, because we talk so much about digital transformation. I think it's, sometimes talk about the good, but this one is definitely the bad. So the quick history here is over, which was basically the day before Christmas through the holiday. What happened was there was a big, cold front here in the United States, which in itself, not a big deal, right? Just sort of like, another cold day across the United States. But what happened was it impacted some of the Southwest flights. They had to cancel some flights, and it started out pretty normal, right? But what happened was, because Southwest is if you will, point-to-point flyer, they don't do like hub and spoke. It's rescheduling the flights is a little bit more complicated. And some cancellations in one airport quickly cascaded throughout Southwest to the point that they didn't have a system that allowed them to quickly rebuild the schedule, ultimately resulting in they basically had to take like a whole full day reset. It's sort of like your computer is really messed up. You're like, I got to reboot this whole thing. I'll be back in 5 minutes. So in the case of the airline, it was, we got to reboot the whole schedule and get everybody in the right areas and the planes in the right areas. So we're basically going to cancel a whole day of flights.
I see. So, of course, doing the processing to completely redo the schedule, whatever that means, like took too long.
Took a day. So, but now it basically took a day, but they had to like essentially, and you think about it at the scale, like if you cancel a whole day of flights, so then you got a whole day's worth of people, right? That you then got to like plug back into a system that maybe it has 5%. On a good day, maybe it's got 2% of slack in it. Now you're just, you basically need 100% slack. And so what happened was, in kind of reading up on it, and the part that I thought was interesting was the process. I guess this has been really well known, I guess, and there's a great letter that was written by the head of the pilots union. So I guess he's a captain at Southwest Airlines. I don't know if he actually wrote it. I assume a ghostwriter wrote this thing, but if he didn't write this, or if he did write this, he should have been a writer. This is one of the most fantastic letters to from a union head to an executive I've ever read. I mean, the language is awesome. The examples is awesome. I encourage everyone to go read it. But what this pilot did is he went back and he said, this is not new. He actually went back and said it happened in these other times, right? And he basically went on to say is the company has been failing to invest in technology over this very long period of time, has this antiquated system by which pilots, flight attendants, and other staff, they literally have to call in. They have to call into the Southwest Airlines,
like calling techs. You don't know techs. You didn't go to UT, right? But it was the telephone enrollment exchange for UT.
Okay, yeah, it's probably something like that, an automated system. You have to call in, and then the pilots have to like be given their rebooking instructions and where to go. And so, like as soon as I hear that, people couldn't see you visually here, Cote, but you sort of like your eyes like lit up. You're like, oh my gosh, people are actually calling in. And I had the same type of thing because I actually saw the spokesman. I started following this a little bit when I was on vacation. The spokesman came out, and one of the questions asked was like, hey, is the problem the systems? And the Southwest Airlines spokesman, so I assume this is the person who's been media trained, who's thought a lot about his answers. He gives the following answers. He's like, I don't think the problem is the systems. It's just we don't have enough people answering the phone. And it was like, you've kind of missed, it's the moment where like, you don't really know what the problem is. Like literally the person is just like, we just need more people in the call center answering the phone. It's like, no. There should be some type of system. A pilot should just be getting text messages, instructing them like, okay, here's where you go. Here's your new assignment. And so this resulted in estimated $825 million loss, which is a combination of refunds, so real money they will have to pay back, a combination of they're giving out more flight credits. And then here in the United States, at least, they're offering like these very cheap fares, $49 to go different places. It kind of comes back to like the things that I highlight here is like one, like just how mainstream like a digital transformation problem is at this point. Like they don't use this term, like nor would I expect them to, but these pilots, and I'll just say the pilots speaking for all the people at Southwest Airlines, are fundamentally asking, like, why can you not provide us better computing systems for us to do our job? And they go further to say that the company has mismanaged its investments, been basically paying a high dividend and paying out money to shareholders where it should have been reinvesting that money in technology. But this is just a regular, I feel like a pilot and a flight attendant. These are just, these are non-tech jobs. These are people that are just sort of like, I have a very specific set of duties I need to do. I need to have the right tools. The fact that group, like the fact that they get the technology is holding them back, I think that's a huge win for digital transformation in general. And then two, the fact that they can quantify, like, hey, look at all the billions of dollars you paid back to shareholders. And then finally, Cote, to what you originally were saying here was absolutely. So now what would a digital transformation project, cost, even one on a large scale? Maybe 25 million, maybe 50 million, maybe those are pretty big projects. I don't think, you don't walk into most places and find those. But now Southwest Airlines is going to be the poster child for this. Well, do you want to wait and spend $825 million? Do you want to wait, almost like a security breach? Do you want to wait until this happens? Or can we carve out $50 million, put together a program that'll take a long time? To be realistic, this won't happen overnight, but can we, start building a program that will get us to the place that we need to be? So I think everyone that works in digital transformation, all of us, like, we got to update our slides. Like this is like going on my deck, first page.
I think you call this the Southwest constant, and it's $825 million, right? and the Southwest constant is basically, this is the number we've been searching for, right? Like, I'm going to just detail or agree with a lot of what you just said, because security was my first thought, right? Security, the thing with selling security is all you have to be like is like, aren't you afraid? Sign here, right? Like it's just like whatever the business case is, it doesn't matter, right? Like you have to be secure. So you can like hunt out the commodity things versus whatever else, but like it's just security. You don't, I'm exaggerating. However, does seem a lot nicer compared to what you were just talking about. It's like, well, we should just kind of re-platform and rewrite, and whether it's 5 R's or 7 R's or however many R's, like let's work on this 5-year project to do our digital transformation stuff. And like I feel like that business case is near impossible to do. Like, in a way that everyone is going to agree on. Like you'll certainly have subsets of people who agree on it. But now, I think previously you couldn't really do these kind of business cases. Like you can't do a business case based on savings until you've lost all that money, which isn't really what you want to do. And so now we have the Southwest constant, and we can start in the same way that you can be like, you know what, you should buy my security product, Log4j, and then boom, you're done, right? Like
it's over.
SolarWinds. And then you're done, right? And so like here, I think if we can get maybe like, let's say we need a total of 5 constants here. And I think we can do something. And I think the last one that I remember is that there was a lawsuit between Hertz and Accenture about some sort of big project that went off the rails a while ago. And I think we could get a constant from that. But I think we get about 5 of these numbers, and you can kind of, what you can do is you can be like, all right, we're going to do the business case, and we're going to have 5 lines based on the 5 constants. There's a drop-down box. You can check what that number is. And like, we all know that we're just like illustrating a point, but the point is to show what the potential impact is. And then finally, like the security people, we can make money based on fear, which I think is a future
That's right.
we all should probably not look forward to.
But I do think, obviously in the end, all of these things are incentives, right? So of course, the stock market and investors are going to reward a CEO for higher earnings and a higher dividend. Like that's just how it works. So I think that's the real, difficulty being an executive is like, hey, is saying to ourselves like, well, we're going to be a little less profitable, right? And we're going to do this because we've got to, we have to protect against, the quote unquote bad swan event, right? So this is an $800 million, essential, like, one day outage. And, and I think, I think we always talk about too, it's like, the problems were well known. Like I always say this, like you don't need to hire McKinsey or anybody. Like you can just go walk around. In this case, you could go to the pilots and be like, hey, how do you reschedule? How do you do it? How do you reschedule when your plans change, right? And it's like the fact that like, oh, well, everyone has to call the system and things like that. Like that's just a red flag. Like I mean, if I'm running Southwest Airlines, I'm just like, okay, how many people have to make a phone call and how many people do we have on a keyboard answering those calls? And like that to me is a huge red flag, right? So I would say if I had any business, if you just said, put me in charge of, making widgets, and I just was sort of like taking inventory of the company, I would start asking that, like, how many of these manual things are we still doing? And what would it look like if we had a sudden surge in activity? Could we survive it? And I think in the case of an airline, it's pretty obvious that these kind of situations are going to be pretty common. Maybe some other types of industries, it's just completely unheard of to have this kind of surge. So I think that, and also too, as you look at where the CEO is now, it's like, well, clearly, he'll have to go to the board. So I guess my question's kind of following this, like, one, will there be any action on them? Like if this person had to step down or was fired, that would really send a message, right? That would say, hey, you are in charge of this. You didn't get it done. We're moving on. And two, I mean, it's rare that you unite so many parties to immediately hate you, right? Like if you're the CEO, you have your staff, all your employees, all the pilots and flight attendants, at least, they are very unhappy with you, right? All of your passengers, I mean, because universally, almost everybody that was on Southwest was affected. Now, unhappy with you. And it kind of just leaves like, it's really like when you think about like who's left, right? It's like maybe the investors are happy, but they're no longer happy because you lost 825 million. So as the CEO, right, it's sort of like that would be the way I would paint this. Would be like, you've got to be proactive in doing these things because there's going to be this moment when it's going to be all your fault. And we'll see what the consequences are. Maybe nothing. Maybe, he's the person to lead it back. But it would seem like if I was the board of directors, like one simple thing you could do is just have that person step down, bring in somebody, give them the charter. Hey, you're going to take our systems and modernize them for the next, 20 years. Let's get it done. Pay everybody, give them the frequent flyer miles, give them some low fares and try to rebuild your brand.
I mean, I guess that, I forget how long ago this was, but there was in security world, there was the Target CEO was fired or something, right? Or resigned.
Right. For the security breach of credit cards.
Thing, yes. Which is, kind of a pattern of what you're saying. Yeah, it is like, I think you're getting to the counter case I was thinking in my head, running parallel to the Southwest constant, and I think this is what will have to pan out is like, well, there's two things. One, this is probably something you could get your big four consulting people to come do for you. That would be nice. And I don't know if it would be helpful. This would be helpful when you're deciding what to do, not after the fact, justifying that you didn't do anything. I mean, once something's messed up, it's hard to like defend your decision. However, there's got to be some kind of analysis that's basically like, okay, over the past 10 years, I don't know about Southwest, so let's just say you've got a cardboard manufacturing company or whatever. Like over the past 10 years, we could have modernized our stack, but instead we use that money for share buybacks, and therefore we generated this much return for investors. Now, long term, that meant that at some point we could no longer manufacture and ship these cardboard boxes. However, we generated so much value by not doing it and instead using that cash for something else that actually it all kind of evens out, and that we can just take a 5-year hit to modernize stuff or whatever, or even just get acquired by a PE firm in the cutthroat cardboard manufacturing industry. And so there, that seems like the other side of the business case you need to do is the what if we do nothing?
Well, I think Cote, there's a really good counterexample to this that I thought was just happened to come out at the same time. So Delta is going to offer free Wi-Fi on their flights starting February 1st, right? And so if you read the article there, it basically says they've invested over $1 billion, and I know I was asking around. I know some people that fly Delta a lot, and they said that they've been on some of the planes where they've been testing it, and they said not only is it free, but it's real, it's good Wi-Fi, right?
I think I've used that at some point recently.
Yeah. So like there's different tiers. There's like sounds like Delta is actually Wi-Fi that works. Then there's like I don't know. I won't pick on any specific airline. We've all been online. Like you pay for it, and you're like this doesn't do anything. Like it doesn't work at all, right? So I don't know what the business case was, but on the face of it, I'm just like, as a flyer, maybe one day when I don't fly Delta much, but just seeing this makes me want to fly them. It's just like somehow they came up with the number. They're like, yep, it makes sense for us to spend $1 billion here in Wi-Fi. I assume because they either feel like that will make them more competitive, or in the short run, it will be a competitive advantage. Maybe like people, like I just said, it's like, well, you have a choice between, Southwest and Delta. This week seems like taking Delta would be a lot better. It's like, one, you don't have the outage, but more importantly too, it's like, oh, everyone's got the Wi-Fi. And, you were just talking in the pre-show about and traveling with your kids. It's like, oh man, how great is it? Like they get on, everybody's iPad just has it. You don't have to like buy it. And it's just like, yeah, watch your YouTube, travel, whatever, occupy yourself. So, it's just it's just the flip side of the coin. Nobody, I don't know if the CEO is going to get promoted or he's going to get a bigger bonus for the Wi-Fi, but like clearly at Delta, think about just how hard that was. Like if it really was $1 billion, right? Or even if it was close to that, it was like, that takes a lot of internal selling by someone to convince everyone to do it. It's almost like the Amazon Prime kind of thing. We're going to lose a lot of money on this up front, but down the road, it's going to pay off in spades. So I hope in the case of Delta, whatever they want the benefit of Wi-Fi to be, I hope it comes through, just because it'll be a reason to proactively do a project like that.
No, that's a good example, because it's an example of like taking that extra money. Like you could even do the worst case. Like you're still not going to modernize the stack, and you're going to have this extra money, so you might as well add a competitive feature, right? Like and it is because I don't know. I bet in the airline industry they're just like, pricing. What are you going to do, right? Like that. Those horses have left the barn a long time ago. It's just a race to the bottom pricing, whatever, right? However, if you can't compete on pricing or any other aspect, you got to find these other things to compete on. And I bet there are plenty of people who will be like, yeah, that sounds good. And even if there's not, like, well, if they add 5 more of these types of things, maybe it would be. Like another example has nothing to do with software. Is like, you got, I remembered this because we were on a plane that did not have this, is like, it would be a fun move like this if an airline said, all right, we got all those new planes where you can actually put carry-on bags like in a different way. So you can pack lots of carry-on bags in the overhead. You can put 4 in an overhead instead of 2. And so because of that, it's free to check a carry-on bag if you want, right? Like it doesn't make any sense to like, that would be a great like snarky ad to be like, yeah, you know why we charged you? Because there wasn't room. So we wanted to make money and also prohibit you from doing it. But now, I mean, if you want to check it, it's fine, but you're going to have to wait to pick it up. Why don't you just put it on for free? Like, yeah, whatever. It'll actual fit. They should get some ad people to work on that pitch there. But like it's just, and this is the kind of thing, like I was just thinking, this year, I need to explore ideas like this more, which are sort of like unquantifiable good business ideas, right? Like another one, and you could quantify the overhead bin thing by saying like the plane will board faster and then blah, 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 like some sort of like tailoring stuff. But like, I don't know, I've been on enough flights that like, it doesn't really matter how fast the plane boards. You're just going to sit on your ass. Like, in fact, I'm going to go on a tiny rant, but I'll keep it short. Like, I travel enough that like what I really dislike is when they want to board early. Like if the boarding time is 2:45, I'm going to show up at like 2:50 because I know it takes at least 5 minutes to board first class, right? So if I show up at like 2:50 and I'm like one of the last 8 people to board the plane, I'm just like, what the fuck, right? Like, now you've just boarded us early and we're going to sit on our ass. And also I had to struggle to find overhead stuff. It's just like, don't board early. Like it doesn't make sense, right? And then, you always got to wait for some mechanical person to sign off on something, which is fine. We don't want the plane flying, falling out of the air. Anyhow, like I think it's good to start thinking about like, so instead of having to do a business case for like adding in this feature, like what if it just made the product better and like, and see how that pans out. Like another one, I noticed back in the States, you can actually pay with your phone a whole lot of places. So, you can still tell it's like weird, like it's a little strange, and like still notably HEB doesn't do it, which is just baffling. I don't know what I don't know what their problem is, but that's fine. And I saw that there's a lot. I've never encountered this, but you can have like a QR code on a receipt to pay for something. I mean, that's basically how what we call Tiki over here works, where you scan a QR code and it opens up a website that has you select your bank. It's the Netherlands has like 5 banks, so that's pretty easy. But it selects a supported bank and you transfer the money. But it's another thing of like, you could make up some business case of like allowing people to pay with their phone is more efficient and blah 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 and does all this, but like really it's just like better. And like eventually to like go through the years of getting to that point, someone has to just be like, yeah, we should do that because it's better and people will want to
well, I think not only that, but
stuff.
like it is one of those things that at times it probably seems at like the one transaction level, it's like, oh, what's the big deal? The wait staff comes to you, takes your credit card, goes back and runs it. It's like, okay, like if you're just at, one restaurant or one person does that, it's like, okay, not a big deal. But like when you really do sit down and think to yourself, how often does this happen every day? Where like the wait staff has to come over, let's get the card. They have to go back, spend, 2 or 3 minutes running the check, bring it back to you. Then you have to manually sign it and things like that. And it's like, of course, it's not only is it a productivity loss, is like that wait staff could be, serving more customers, or the tables could be turning over faster. It's a security problem, right? Because they have your credit card and it's gone from you, and like maybe they'll take your number, maybe they won't. And so when you really start to think to yourself, it's like we probably underestimate like just how much productivity could be saved when that like ultimately is rolled out, and that becomes the de facto way to do it. Like when it's sort of like 90% of the way the checks are paid in the United States are done through this automated way, it's like going to be a huge savings. So I think sometimes it's like it just seems, it's sort of like the human mind doesn't naturally think like that. It doesn't think, it's almost like a form of compounding interest, right? It's like, oh, we don't really think like that, but the savings could be tremendous. And it's so, and again, it's like, you build up small savings like that over a long period of time, right? Everything's going to be a lot better. So it'll be interesting to see how that takes off over time.
Now I was also, of course, man, did we? Yeah, we cooked a few times on our own, but of course we ate out as much as possible, right? To almost a literally making a sick degree. At some point you're just like, but I want a salad. And then of course we went to Chewy's and got like a taco salad, which is just barely a salad. But anyhow, like I was putting on my my sort of like salesperson hat as I was noticing for the little point of sale things they bring to the table. Maybe you've noticed this. But you've got to be really careful because they like what they do in the States that they don't do in Europe is in Europe you just pay and that's it, you're out. But in the States you scan your phone or whatever on the thing, and then there's another screen that asks you what tip you want to leave.
Right.
And there's this is where things get exciting. There's always custom amount. However, not only are the other 3 amounts frequently different as far as percentages, they're frequently in a different order. Yeah. And so like my mind would be trained that 15% is the default, and so that will be in the upper left-hand corner, right? That's going to be the beginning of things, and it's going to go up. It'll be like 15%, 20%, 25% custom amount on the bottom. However, what I learned is that they don't do that. Like it's all over the place, right? And not only is it all over the place, sometimes it's like 21%. And so like I'm thinking part of the pitch must have been like, and you can customize the tip amount, right?
Yeah,
you can start to do some programming, and like, we found that if you just raise it up to 22%, you bring in more tips than if you just left it at the
100%. Like I don't know if it's customized or how much that is, but for sure you see lots of different amounts. Sometimes you'll see like 17, 19, and 21. It's like you'll see like there's clearly some behavioral psychology going like, well, like if we put 17, the person was going to do 15, so they won't, they won't change it. So there's a lot of like weird little nudges.
And they could use machine learning to dynamically refresh it each hour if they were using edge computing over 5G.
For sure, right? Absolutely.
That sounds like something that the data analysis people should look into. And
I wish that is one of the many things I wish we could just do away with. It's just like I want everyone to like make a good living and just put the appropriate amount. You know what I mean? Just round up to like Chewy's is a good example. Like been there many times. Like I want everyone to like have a good living. Like I don't know. Is 15 too low? Is 20 too much? Like just someone do the work for me. I don't want to be trying to issue some performance review every time I have a taco. just please just like everyone did a good job.
Talk about a productivity improvement. I mean, you'd gather more taxes probably, like you'd spend less time on stuff.
It's just I just don't want to think about it. Like 99% of the time, it's like, yeah, everything was great. Like just, everyone deserves whatever. Just put it on there. Don't make me think about it. But you bring it to me, I'm like, well, yeah, it's somewhere between probably 15 or 20% is like where I'll end up. So I don't know if that's good or bad.
So sort of related as far as productivity. I think the new year starts off, and I think there's a few more experiments about just your day-to-day work life, things that are going on there. And I think the one that I think will be a personal favorite of yours that we review at the end of the year. Hopefully, I don't know if this is going to be CY or FY, but we've got to see how did the Shopify no meetings thing go, right? And it looks like basically, speaking of a hard reboot, that at Shopify the management was just like, I'm sure it wasn't literally this, but it's kind of effectively this is like, all right, we're going to delete everyone's meetings, and we would really like you not to schedule new ones. And I think there was actually a criteria. I forget. It almost seemed the reverse. It was almost like the more people in a meeting, the more likely it should be canceled, which I would have intuited that it'd be the reverse, right? Like if you're going to have an all hands meeting, have more and more people. But I guess there's kind of like a meeting shit valley, right? Where like if everyone in the company is in a meeting, they should probably all be in the meeting because that's going to be a fucking important meeting, right? Whereas if you just have like 20 people in the meeting, that's way too many people to have in the meeting, right? But at some point, you approach probably, I'm going to say if 75% of the people in the company are in a meeting, shit's going down. Right, those might be the only 75% of the people who still work after the next hour. But if it's below 75%, maybe you don't need to have those meetings, and you can have like 2 people.
Well, I think what you're referring to, because I just think I love these I love when I see these things, because like you're like, I'm pretty sure today at Spotify there are plenty of meetings. Absolutely, I would guarantee it. Right, even after this went out, I'm sure there are plenty of meetings. Maybe they're not even called meetings anymore. Maybe people are just Shopify. Yeah, they're slacking each other. Right. And they're like, just like quietly getting together, but they're not sending an invite. Like that would probably be the thing that actually happens. Like, hey, no one's sending an invite because that's
meeting subterfuge.
Right. There's like a secret way to have a meeting. Right. And so, but I think, we should bucket them because there's the all hands meeting. Like, let me tell you this, like who schedules the all hands meeting? Mostly it's the executives. Mostly those meetings are just listen only because there's like way too many people. There can be hundreds, if not thousands on there. And I've always thought to myself, like, and there's always a huge production. Like they'll have like a staff, a video production staff, sometimes like producing it. They'll have the executive come up and they'll be in a nice room and they'll have the videos and all sorts of stuff. And it's like, why do we have to do this live? Why don't you just make a video, right? At your leisure, anytime. Or a podcast, or deliver it both, right? Like here's the recorded video, here's the podcast version, and just send it out and say, hey, I wanted to give everyone an update on such and such. Please watch the video or download the podcast. Like I have rarely seen that. I think I've been at 1 or 2 places, right? It's a huge, like, so I don't know why. I think if you suggest that to executives, people feel like it's not as important. It's not live. We're not going to let people ask questions. And it's like, none of that matters. You can also have people submit questions earlier and be like, hey, I'm going to please submit the questions beforehand. I'll answer them out, whatever. I'll answer the top 10. So like, that would be my first question back to the Shopify CEO. It's like, okay, when's the last time you had an all hands and how did you do it? And when's the next time you're going to have an all hands, right? Or do you just communicate via written text? That's fine too. Like, I'm not going to do any videos. I'm going to do that. So that's my first question. And my second time is just back to like, I don't know, like I'm in meetings a ton. Some of them are very valuable, especially the ones where we're often talking about the client or the customer requirements, getting ready for the meeting. Like, a lot of times I'm getting briefed up on like, here's where the client is. I'm briefing them on how our technology could do it. And it's like, I don't know how we would do it. Like if we didn't like talk, like if we had to do it all via email or Slack, it would be really, I don't know, it'd be really hard. And this is us trying to go out and like, so I think those meetings, like I personally actually want to be in those meetings all day long. Cause I feel like they're very valuable. Like and then when we're meeting with the customers, I always actually leave. Not only do I like those meetings, I feel energized. So it's like, okay, we did something. Now there's a whole bunch of internal meetings, right? Which I think often that are kind of the target of these kind of statements. But then I would argue that I think many of these internal meetings are often generated by the same people who say to have less meetings. And that I'll give you an example. Like anytime you have an MBR, a QBR, or a CEO just says offhand, I'd like to know more on the subject X, right? That will usually trigger like 5 pre-meetings before the actual meeting, right? Because people are afraid to just walk into the CEO's office and be like, we're not sure what you want, or like, here's what we know. It's like, you have to go to the chief of staff. The chief of staff assembles everybody. And then that person maybe has a manager. They bring in an individual contributor. Then we're all working on slides. Then there's a PowerPoint template. Then there's like, well, Cote, I got 3 slides from you and I got 3 slides from Brandon. Now, oh, that's too many. We got to make it smaller. Now let's do a rehearsal. And it's like all of this came out of, like an executive kind of offhanded comment. And I think, but like, what do you say? Like, if you say to yourselves, like, let's just go talk to the executive directly, like you will have 1,000 gatekeepers preventing that. So I don't know. I just kind of come back to all of this and be like, when the memo goes out to say we don't have meetings, my follow-up question is like, what did the same team that said we shouldn't have meetings do? What are they doing to help prevent the meetings? Because my guess is not much.
No, you raise a good point there, and like I think well, first of all, I think what you got to do is a little bit of at least what's reported here that Shopify is doing, which is you've got to have some tops-down structure to it, right? And instead of just being like, go to less meetings, like I've been at places where they're like, oh, you should have meetings that are 45 minutes long, and then people try to send me like 45-minute meetings, and I'm like, this is stupid, right? Like it's all there's no way to enforce that, and we're gonna. Because you're going to have a 45-minute meeting and then there's 15 minutes free, and inevitably you just fill the 15 minutes. So just book 60. That's the way things go. However, like for example, there's like, I always like the idea of enforcing a day where you can't have meetings company wide. I mean, that makes sense, right? Because it's sort of like, it's like the Christmas break was, like more or less. If the whole company is more or less off on Christmas, you don't feel the responsibility to like be an overachiever. And do anything.
You get that for free if you're in Australia.
Exactly. And then
because everyone's like, I've got this meeting on Friday. I'm like, nope, that's Saturday.
I wonder how much it works, because then it's just like, if it just means that like you push out the meetings that you're going to have on Wednesday to Thursday, and they don't actually go away, then it's like, I don't know, have we solved any real problem?
I think the thing, and there's a few other structural things that I think are good, but I think the thing that you're getting at, Brandon, is like it gets back to what we were talking about earlier, is like there's a lot of value in things you can't quantify. Right. And one of the things you can't quantify is like the answer to the following question, which every large company asks itself all the time, is why does it take so long to do things around here? Right.
Yeah.
And like, so that's the other side of this thing, is like meetings are both, they are first a symptom, but then they also become the disease. Right. There's probably some medical name for that. Right. But like there's, and you illustrate this very well. It's just like, well, the way that the decision hierarchy in this organization necessitates lots of meetings for the meetings for the meetings. You can't have, to use the Gelsinger thing, you can't have the meeting in the meeting, right? Like it's the final meeting is just some performance that you have. And so, I mean, that's, you gotta get that in somehow, which is like, I don't know, seems hard to get to that point, but that seems the main way to eliminate meetings. Because otherwise, yeah, sure, people are going to want to
I think,
practice
things. The internal meetings, I do think it's kind of back to the Gelsinger and things like that. It's like, listen, if the executive team knows the stuff that they want to see and review on a periodic basis, then that's the moment, like back to digital transformation. Go build the dashboards, spend the time to figure out how to automatically get what you need, right? And then you as the executive should say to yourself, like, if I'm asking for something that's not on this dashboard, you may rightfully need it, but the request should be added to the dashboard. Because like what 90% of the time happens is like people are going out, creating slides, cutting and pasting charts and graphs from multiple sources into like some pretty PowerPoint deck, especially if you got some financial bankers on your team. They'll make it look great, right? And then, there's all these dry runs to then figure out how to present that information. But like, to me, that's on the consumer, right? Like you can either say to yourself, we don't know what we're going to need. Therefore, when I ask for a meeting, I expect there to be 5 pre-meetings to get prepared. And also the way you conduct your meetings. If you are in meetings and you're asking hard questions and you penalize people for not knowing, what are people going to do? They're going to practice and they're going to try to prepare. Why would you not? Why would you want to walk in if I know that my performance evaluation is going to happen in this meeting. And if I'm not prepared for every possible question, then I'm not going to do well. Then I'm going to have a lot of pre-meetings. Like we would practice a lot versus like, hey, just tell me what you know right now, because that's kind of what I'm after. And I don't care. Like, if you don't know the answer, saying you don't know or giving me like your 5-minute guess is all I want, then that's fine too. But like, are you as the executive or the manager or the person running the meeting, like, what are you showing your team, right? What are you actually showing? Yeah. And also too, like, are you like the second level managers are the ones that are always the most paranoid, right? It's like, what are you showing your second level manager, right? Are you penalizing them? Are you making it easy for them to bring other experts in that maybe work for them that can answer questions? Or are you holding them responsible for some behavior of your employees that they're worried about? You know what I mean? So I think like all of these things like play in together, right? And so I think it's just very easy at the top to be like, there's no meetings. I'm like, people at the top are often like to me, that's the place to start, at least for a lot of it. And then of course, the bureaucracy that follows, that comes back to like, what are the processes to deliver products? What is the processes to review sales goals and things like that? Like, okay, if those things are well understood, and those things are easy to measure without having people to actually walk you through it, you're going to have less meetings. But if you want a meeting tomorrow on what's going on in Asia Pacific and nobody's asked that question, or you haven't reviewed a dashboard, it's going to generate a lot of meetings.
Too many meetings. Now, as a related thing, I think I want to get your take, Brandon, on reports that within Netflix, there is less access to salary transparency than there used to be. Like it looks like, I didn't even know this was part of the Netflix awesome pack or whatever. But apparently, in the past, there was quite a bit of salary transparency. And when I was reading, and I think it's been lessened. It's lessened recently. And the funny part, well, if I remember what I read correctly, somehow one of the drivers was that there were, and I think it said director, there was too many directors, and they were like getting upset about how different people were paid. So it's almost like too many promotions occurred. This seems like a common tech company problem. But Brandon, this seems like a topic that is custom made just for you.
Well, it is. I mean, I don't know if I have probably anything I haven't said before on it. So it's just like, I always come back to like, the books, right? Like, especially, Reed Hastings, he wrote his management book, right? Like almost as the stock market, as Netflix stock was at the top. And like one of the things is like radical transparency, and that gets discussed a lot. I don't know, to be fair, I don't know if he said that. I think that was just one of the ideas, is that, and also the idea that, Netflix is really big on like teams, not a family, right? Like, hey, we're a group of professionals, we come together. This is how we operate. And like on a team, especially a professional sports team, is like everyone can look at your statistics. Like you can look at it, like how many tackles, how much passing, how many goals, whatever sport it is, right? And it's just open there. And we all know if you do well, you get rewarded and you are highly paid. And if you don't do well, you're either off the team or you're not as highly paid. And everyone can look at a sports team and see generally what the salaries of all the players. And so, when I see the stuff from Netflix, it's just like, well, yeah, when the stock price was going up, and, you seem to have endless growth, that famous PowerPoint gets passed around like millions of times, but now suddenly things aren't going so well. And immediately you backtrack from the core tenet of like, because I don't even understand, like, why would it be a problem if people saw it and were upset, especially at a culture of Netflix? You would just tell somebody you're not worth that, right? You would just be direct, right? The old keeper test. It's like, we will keep you at this salary. This is what we think you're performing at. If you don't like it, you can move on, or like, or if you did better, we'll pay you more, right? And it's like, of all, I mean, the culture has like, as it has been described to me, is like, that is the culture. But to now walk away, like now when it's the time, like now it's kind of hard, right? Now suddenly the stock price isn't doing well. People are frustrated. Now to start walk away and to start to create the bureaucracy around it, like what did you originally stand for? Or everything that you said before was just sort of like, back to like the halo effect, right? It's like causation versus correlation. Like all these things you said before really have nothing to do with the success. It's just sort of like, while you're riding high, you made these like grand pronouncements. Now that things aren't going well, you're just kind of doing what everyone else did. So don't be afraid. Don't be upset when someone points that out to you later on in a meeting, right, that you may not want to have.
I mean, this is exactly the same as like all those free snacks going away, or the massages at your desk. You don't get that stuff anymore now that the stock price is starting to trickle downwards a little. So yeah, what's good for me is only good when the stock is up.
Yeah. I think pay transparency would be great. Isn't there a law, I think, in California?
Don't you actually just want pay transparency for you, not for me?
No. Like there's I've noticed this in the VMware job listings that I think there must be a law in like New York
law that has to
California
be published now.
Yeah, you have to put like the salary range or whatever in there, which makes sense. That must be fun, and it must be delightful for recruiters where they'd be like, oh, it's listed as this, and they'll be like, that's for New York. You live in Ohio, and whatever. This is an argument as old as time that I always have about who cares where you live, but it must be just a lot. It's
harder to ride your bike to work.
Yeah, but it's empowering for workers to get an estimate what it is.
But I don't know, to really go maybe more philosophical on this. I mean, this continues your area. It's like the only really win in salary, I think, is to make a salary where you can live a comfortable life and still save money, right? In the end, that's really all that matters, right? That you can, like, if you will, have a net savings rate. So if you're in a job that you are generally happy with and you are able to put away some amount of that in savings, and you're not, like, if you will, living through like FOMO anxiety, always feeling like there's just stuff you don't have that you want, that, you know what I mean? Like you've created a living standard that you're comfortable with. Like in the end, that's like what matters. That's what actually wins, right? Because all this other stuff, it's like, other than like finding managers that like you or people sharing the data with you kind of like privately or telling you what's going on, it's like, none of this, it doesn't get fixed through any type of transparency. You know what I mean? It just doesn't, right? And so I think that's like what you can control is just like, hey, I know I need to make this and live in this area, and that's what I'm trying to do. Yes, I want to make more, and if I see opportunities, I will, but I'm not going to radically change my lifestyle, even if I get that extra money. Like, that seems like, to me, that's the only like winning strategy to the whole thing.
Well, the main benefit that you want to look out for in a job is that if you're taking a flight of 6 hours or more, you can fly business class. And I think if you could sort through the jobs that you have, you'll find out which companies have caste systems and which don't. And I think you can weight heavily on that. It's always good to look at. So as a final thing, and this is one that I have very little insight into, but it would be great if there was some more reporting on it, maybe some analysis. It looks like there's some. I don't know. There was an article written that and I think it was in the Wall Street Journal and showed up in the Register that maybe this whole Slack thing didn't really work out for Salesforce. That there wasn't really like. There were no to reword it in my phrase, there were no synergies achieved, right? Now, I don't really know, right? Like I haven't tried to go use Salesforce in a couple of months, and it does always seem kind of connected to what you were saying earlier, Brandon. It seems like, why do you need to have a meeting to go over the APAC stuff? Don't we have Salesforce? And you should just be able to go look at that.
Dashboards and reports, yeah.
Yeah, but so there's that. I mean, we all know what the answer is. It's just like, well, yes, we do have Salesforce. You need to use it and go in and like make sure that it's updated and that blah, blah, blah. When you customize it, you don't abandon it and all that kind of stuff. But anyhow, I have they like, I when I was reading this, it occurred to me, not that I follow ERP space or whatever, but like, I don't know, like, I can't really think of anything that they've done as far as combining them together. Like, and so, maybe there's even like a go to market, like what do they call that? A spiff? Maybe you get a spiff if you sell some Salesforce and Slack or something. And so there's some synergies to be had there. Or can you like update your pipeline estimate with like a little slash command and an emoji or something?
You got to assume some of that stuff existed before the acquisition, right? I mean, Slack's always had a strong integration game, and like if that was the point of the acquisition, well, it wasn't well thought through.
Now there's another case I was thinking of, is that maybe I'm overthinking this, and this wasn't a synergy acquisition. It was we need to enter a new type of business acquisition, right?
Well, I think if you listen to Benioff, I think it was clear that the business case included some type of bundling. Like, hey, if we have this together, we can bundle, in this case, Salesforce and Slack. And they have some other stuff. I mean, Tableau is actually owned by Salesforce as well. My large read on this is that, and again, like this feels like a business lesson as, is as old as time itself, right? It's like, we're going to buy these other things. We're going to then sell them as a bundle to our current and new customers, and we'll make more. And it's like probably no more than 50%, and honestly a lot less does that actually work out. So I think that's just what's happened here is they bought Tableau, they bought Slack, and they haven't really seen any additional sales growth from either now that they're under Salesforce, which I think actually all three of those products, though, like if you just ask me, I'd be like, they're all great products, unto themselves. But like, yeah, I don't necessarily think, the buyers of Salesforce would have any more affinity for Slack or Tableau than just anything else. So I get it. Like, I'm sure if you're Benioff, and I think that's just probably why his previous co-CEO is stepping down, and why the CEO of Slack is stepping down as well. It's just like, it's just not working out, right? It's just not going. And there probably is no, I don't want to say there's no hope. It's like there probably isn't going to be any bundle strategy going forward. So the people that had to pay were the co-CEO and the head of Slack, or maybe they didn't have to pay. Maybe they just decided like, we want to, like, it's not working out. We're going to move on, and let Mark Benioff kind of like restructure the company however, he wants. And so I don't know, it's just interesting because, like Salesforce has that, I think it's Mahalo. That's a Hawaiian word, right? Is that like, they have that very like Hawaiian type of, attitude. I guess a lot of things, I know Mahalo is like, or that attitude, I can't remember what they call it inside their culture. Maybe it's that, but it does seem like, as we've seen many times before, it's like during times of a downturn, right? You kind of see, like, I guess one of the articles was like, Salesforce is, I guess, Mark Benioff, unhappy with worker productivity, unhappy with work from home. And it's like, it's just kind of the same thing we see over and over again. So hopefully it'll work it out. But all those products are good. So I don't know. To me, I guess it's like, I'm not there every day, but I'm like, yeah, Salesforce seems like these are good products. They'll all do well. Maybe not as well as you want, but seems like a solid business to me.
I think we can derive, or we can add more weight to like a general M&A principle, which being a principle doesn't mean it applies 100% of the time, but is that if you're going to acquire a company that is a different like product or technology than you are, you can't get synergies. Like, you're just going to have to run it as a separate part of the company. Like, you can use your like Microsoft account to log into Xbox or something, but I doubt have like.
There's no synergies between Excel and my Xbox account, but
right, it's just like
a shared account.
Yeah, they're just separate businesses, and you treat them as such, right? And similarly, like, unless you had some really good insight, into like a text-based chat entry thing that you're going to use to like update your pipelines or do reporting, like, you could just run it as a separate business, and that could be cool, right? But then, of course, you have the Teams problem and everything. Like, it just seems like a bummer of timing that you encounter.
But I think, what about this is a meeting that you'll never be invited back to? Like, I think if you were just like more honest about it, like if you just sort of like grab some McKinsey study, you'd be like, listen, the bundling strategy works at best 25% of the time, right? So if we do this acquisition.
Yeah.
If we just said like, listen, just industry standard. Like, I really, because I think there's a ton of these studies out there. It's like, if we do this, 1 in 4 chance it will actually make us more money. Now, if we have a ton of extra money and we don't have any great ideas, maybe like 1 in 4 is not a bad idea. If we really are counting on this to double the revenue next year through bundling, we should probably cross that off the list and go do something different. You know what I mean? And just like, but I just know in the meetings, like if you gave a probability, people will be like, what do we pay? You walk into like, why are you here? Why do we pay you? Right? You're like, well, I'm just here because I think this is more realistic. They would want someone to be like, bias to action. You're going to take this, you're going to integrate it, and you're going to go out and give like a pep talk, and it's all going to work. And those are the people that execute acquisitions. And then when it doesn't work, you just like walk away. It's kind of what's going on here. But you could have just asked anyone to walk in the room and be like, what's the general consensus of this? 1 in 4 is probably even generous, right? It's like, yeah, maybe we are, maybe it's going to happen for us, but like statistics would say it's not likely going to happen.
And the good thing about that is given the Salesforce, Hawaiian culture, you can start and end with the same slide, and you'll be like, aloha, I'm here to talk about your strategy. Aloha, we talked about your strategy.
It would be. I totally.
And it's like, what? We told you what was going to happen, and here we are at the end of the cycle, and that's what haped. You didn't get these synergies.
There was this other one that was funny in this Benioff article. He said something to the effect of like 50% of the sales, or sorry, I don't know. like 90% of sales is coming from 50% of the salespeople, right? That's what he said, something to that effect, right? And it's like, well, like I would just be like, well, there's the answer. Well, then you know what I mean? You know who's not producing, right? And like, so you can get rid of that staff. And it's like, but you know the answer. Like if you gave that answer to him, he'd be like, well, it changes. It's not always like, I'm not sure exactly who it is. I just know, you know, this person's productive now, but next quarter it could be someone else. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of enterprise sales. That's kind of how it works. You know what I mean? Like when you actually go under the covers, it's like, yeah, you don't really know who's most productive, because it's not a game that's like that predictable, right? It can easily move. So again, it's like, it's just kind of funny. You were just to like, literally, if he was giving a press conference, you would just ask that question. Like, again, as long as you didn't work for him, you know, you can maybe irritate him. If you work for him, I'm sure he would fire you as soon as you said that. So, you know, other things to think about. Mahalo, as they say, mahalo.
Well, but before we get to the recommendations and stuff, I want to do a quick check-in on what's going on with the AI. What are y'all's feelings? Are we going to be replaced? You know, we're going to have the Chat GPT Open AI thing in Microsoft Office now. Apparently, maybe it'll be augmenting searches. What's the feel over there in Australia, Matt Ray? Are they?
I think by the end of the year we need to do an episode where we take our topics, we feed them to Chat GPT, and we just read it, and we see how badly it goes.
Good. Okay.
But you know, I do think. This is going to be the year of, you know, mania around ChatGPT, you know, both pro and con. You've got your schools have already started banning access. So that's fun to see. I don't know if that's an Australian thing or an American thing, but schools are starting to block off access to the websites. I'm sure that's going to work well. Because kids don't understand.
Which to me is like the clearest sign to be excited about something is when a school bans it. Like a school bans a book, a musician, an app, anything. You're like, I want all in. I am all in on that trend, that technology. Like I believe it's going to be incredibly successful.
That is a strong signal from the market. Yeah. But
yeah, I think I'm, you know, as we kind of work through the first order, all the things, like everyone's tried it, everyone's done a Twitter post, you know, everyone's done some type of interview with it. So like, it's okay. It's cool to see all that working through. I guess I've been thinking to myself, it's like, well, what kind of business? Cause it kind of sits kind of like early Google, like the search results were awesome from Google. It was clear. We're like, this is going to be great, but like how it was going to make money was less clear, right? And it's like, and I think that's exactly what's going on with the AI stuff. And it's like, I think though, for it to realize this massive valuation, it probably will be tied to some type of advertising product, right? A product by which the more that you use it, right, the more that it can display some type of advertising unit, and the more that the business can grow, which is both. Like, I wonder if I'm totally wrong, but it just feels like that's where these things typically end up. But it would be interesting if someone were able to license it and do something like completely new, right? Because that's the thing that none of us can see. It's like, oh, this whole new thing they can do, and we're all going to pay for it in this new way. I'm really interested to see, because I think right now, like 10,000 startups are being born that are going to try to like uncover this. So I'm very interested to watch like what actually happens.
Yeah, well, and it makes sense the way Microsoft is investing and intending to integrate it with Bing, right? Google has started sending fewer and fewer questions off to other pages. You know, instead they just answer them on Google. You know, you Google something and the website just tells you the answer instead of sending you to the website with the answer. And I think Microsoft's intention is for Bing to be the place where you ask your question, you get the result without leaving, and of course they get to show you more ads while you're on the page. And so I think, you know, that's a natural, that doesn't sound like a Slack in a Salesforce type of, hey, how's that going to work?
No, I mean, I've heard that same pitch, and it's like, that makes so much sense that I'm almost definitely sure that will not be the big hit, right? Because it's sort of like, well like
that's the obvious hit. That's the obvious.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's probably like this is why I think it's interesting. It's like, okay, people keep saying that, but also I think like Google, like we're all trained to use it. And the revenue, this was kind of shocking. I heard this other day. Bing makes $11 billion in revenue, which to me is like shocking, right? That's unbelievably enormous. Sure. That's double Twitter, right? But then Google makes like, I think roughly $100+ billion. So it's like, it feels like, Chat GPT, like it seems like it would be in that area, but I'm like, I bet you it's somewhere different. You know what I mean? I just feel like everyone's kind of looking there. So there's probably something else that we're like missing that someone's going to, and like, it'll come out of nowhere. Someone will crack the code and then we'll all be like, yeah, that was obvious. Instagram,
Put that
pictures
in
on the
Excel.
internet. We knew it was going to be huge, but I don't know. I wish.
It could also maybe just be worth paying for.
We don't pay for things on the internet.
No, but I think in addition to what you are saying, it's just shores up your competitive advantage, and then also can become something that's, whether you're continuing to pay for something that now includes it, or it's an actual new thing that you pay for. I mean, there's the enterprise cases of like loading in your own stuff that it analyzes or whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about. But it seems like,
well, that's what's awesome. Nobody knows, and everyone, like, this is a cool thing about, I guess the startup is like every idea that can possibly be thought of will be tried in the next 3 years, and 99% of them will be awful. Yeah. And there's going to be one that just blows us all away, and we're going to be like, man, should have done it. And credit to Microsoft. I mean, it looks like they're going to buy half this company. It's like, talk about a good bet. This does seem like one of the bets. It's like, yep, I need $10 billion. I think it's something like $10 or $20 billion Microsoft's going to ultimately put in this to get half the company. It's like, and if you are Microsoft, you're like, yep, let's take $20 billion. Let's throw it over here. And that seems like good odds. Seems like, if it pays off, it could be worth $1 trillion. And if it doesn't, it's like, whatever. That's just a little extra Azure revenue. We'll get somewhere else.
I think it's when one of my snarky newsletters put it, it's better than buying Pinterest for that amount of money.
Absolutely. Right. And at least you know that you've influenced a whole generation of essay writing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That will be nice. Well, speaking of essay writing, do we have any bureaucracy to go over, Brandon?
Just quickly, I just wanted to let everyone know that I sent some stickers out. One to Peter in Sweden. He got a new laptop, and he says he's quote, he's one of the annoying people with all workloads on premise. So they leverage OpenShift, which is still on premise, which I just want to. And then he also let us know that he thought it would be tough working with mostly American vendors, but it turns out American government dislikes the cloud because information security as much as the Swedes do. So great. I guess the America and Sweden, we have that in common, right? I was glad to hear that. So glad to hear from Peter, and also sent Norman some stickers in Germany. And if you would like a sticker, all you have to do is send me your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com, and I will be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world.
There should be a global government cloud club called Fideus Private Cloudus, or
Semper Privatus,
whatever that word for brother and
Semper
sister.
Nimbus Privatus.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, I have some bureaucracy. I have a great newsletter, and if you don't subscribe to it yet and you've listened to this far, you probably would like it. If you go to newsletter.cote.io, you should subscribe to it. It goes out about once a week, sometimes more or less, but do that. It'll be fun. Now, we also have, not we, but we as a collective community. There's some conferences coming up. There's that conference, and the speakers and the schedules are up now, and it's in Round Rock, January 15th to 18th, which is pretty soon. You can probably still get 5% off if you use the code SDT when you register for it. It should be pretty fun. I think I saw a Twitter post that they were loading a bunch of things into semi-trucks to set the conference up. So that looks great. Now, also, later this month, there's going to be the Spring One conference, which is online now. So that means it's free to attend, so I have no discount code. But it's January 24th to 26th. And if you go to springone.io, you can register for it. I've done a lot of work on what you'll see there. Many other people have done much more work, but it's good stuff. I think you'll see some stuff. I saw one talk today that I did a lot of help out with, and it was fun to see it performed. I should get into that, writing speeches. That's an easy job, right? Speech writing.
You just throw it into ChatGPT.
Hey. And then also, I'm going to be speaking at Configuration Management Camp, which is February 6th and 8th. The 8th is a bunch of workshops, but those are delightful. That's going to be in Ghent. I won't embarrass myself by pronouncing it correctly in Belgium, but you should check that out. If you just search for Configuration Management Camp, they like to remove all the vowels except one of them. I think, for the name of the conference, which is a little inscrutable, but also fun. And then there's State of OpenCon 2023 in London, February 7th to 8th. And the Cloud Native Security Con North America, Seattle, February 1st to 2nd. Hopefully it was a great conference. I'm sure people enjoyed it in the future of February 1st and 2nd. And then there's also the Southern California Linux Expo Scale. And I think I did have a talk accepted there, but I haven't accepted it yet. I've never spoken there. Yeah, I think it's either the 14th or the 16th that you have to accept the CFP. But
I think it's the 15th, right between those. But yeah,
Southern California I've got it in somewhere. Yeah. I'll check on it tomorrow.
Are you coming? Are we going to see each other in Los Angeles?
Probably.
Pasadena?
I applied to a bunch of conferences where I felt like we need to show up more and talk about this stuff.
All right.
And, that was one of them. I think also SRECon somewhere. I submitted.
My talk was not accepted to that.
Oh, that's too bad. We should do one of those conferences where talks weren't accepted. Isn't there a name for that? The rejects?
Yeah, there's a Kubernetes rejects, KubeCon rejects has that at least.
Anyhow, Scale is March 9th to 12th in Los Angeles. And then finally, DevOps Days Birmingham, Alabama, not England, is April 20th to 21st. But if you want to find all those things I just ran through really quickly, if you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/396, you can find links to those. And we're always interested in hearing about more conferences. I'm always interested in hearing about conferences that would be good to speak at, because there are both a lot and not too many of them. They're
especially the ones that you don't have to travel too far for.
Yeah, indeed.
Unless they're interesting locations. So I'm looking at you, APAC. Send me somewhere good.
Oh yeah, that would be nice. Well, with that, what do you have to recommend this week, Matt Ray?
I got a pair of recommendations. I spent a fair amount of time on airplanes the last 2 weeks, going back and forth to the US, and caught up on some of my TV watching. So I finally finished watching the Wu-Tang Saga Season 2 just in time for Season 3. So if you are a fan of the Wu-Tang Clan, this series, you should be watching it. I thought Season 2 was actually much better than Season 1. So, it's good stuff if you like the Wu-Tang Clan. Not for anybody else. My wife was like, "What are you watching?" And our eyes rolled over before I finished the sentence. So, there's that. And I've also been enjoying the Oxide and Friends podcast. It's a successor to the On the Metal podcast. It's just Brian Cantrell and a couple of the other folks over at Oxide with celebrity guests talking about the latest news. And the episode I wanted to call out was the Breaking It Down with Ian Brown. There was a Twitter space where folks were talking about Twitter's infrastructure, and Elon Musk hopped in and started berating one of the guys about his opinions. And it turns out the guy, of course, had been a frontline engineering manager at Twitter for 8.5 years and actually knew absolutely what he was talking about, but got kicked out of the chat. So it's a very good, discussion about re-engineering, technical debt, and showing up and trying to burn a place down from the inside. So,
what's up with those Oxide people? Are they shipping boxes or anything?
I think they're shipping boxes. Yeah.
They're
shipping boxes with brand new control, bare metal controls, and all open source, and nothing but respect for the work they're doing, and have fun storming the castle.
They need to send us each a box that we can run our home network on. We can do our. Yeah. I mean, it sounds. Could we do like some encoding on it and some video work?
I'm sure you could.
Right.
I'm sure.
We'll edit the podcast on it. That's what we need. We need more horsepower for sure.
They need the attention we can give them. Yeah,
you need to buy a sidecar for your service mesh to get your goopy GP3.
Oh, this is bare metal, so we're way below that threshold.
Oh, that's good. Hopefully, it's got some parallel processing for video editing.
Yeah, start listening. You'll catch up soon.
Thank you. How about yourself, Brandon? What do you have to recommend?
Well, my recommendation is pretty pedestrian here. It's large garage shelves. So I bought some. I'm calling these industrial garage shelves rather. They're about 90 inches tall. So there's like 5 levels, and they're about 90 inches wide. So got to have a big space for it. but I felt like we as a family, we purged a bunch of stuff. We have a lot of extra space in the garage now. It's mostly very clean. We got rid of all the crappy plastic shelves and I don't know, hand-me-down shelves. So I feel like, we've re-architected the garage. I'm really happy with it. I'm hoping that we can limit ourselves to, like, if it can't fit on a shelf, then we probably don't need it. That'll be, if you will, that's my storage shed that I'm trying to get to. So they were more expensive than I think anyone should spend on shelves. They were, I think, $350 at from Home Depot, which I had a hard time spending that much money. But now that they're here, I really like it. So if you've, I'm sure like thousands of other people have been shopping for these, I will highly recommend them. Put them in your garage, and you can have the peacefulness when you park your car in there. You'll see all of your stuff nicely organized.
I think you hit on two things there, Brandon. One is a metaphor for less meetings. Just like you can have less meetings, but that means you're going to have less stuff up on those shelves in the boxes, right? Yes. You got to get rid of putting in shelves isn't going to let you like keep a bunch of crap that you should have gotten rid of. And then two, it's only two. I put up 2 shelves recently for the kids, and I rediscovered, as you have discovered, like shelves. You need a lot of shelves. Like if you don't have shelves, you should look into that because they're pretty magical. And especially if there's an empty space in a room somewhere, consider putting a shelf there because it'll probably be used. You need to take advantage of vertical space, build up for all your crap instead of build down. Well, my recommendation, I was lucky to get plenty of time over the break to read some books, and I finished reading one book quite short called Mouth to Mouth by Antonio. I don't know what his name is. I don't know. It was like recommended here and there, but it's a fun. The premise sounds completely stupid, so I'm not going to tell it to you. But it's a good book. It's very well written and engaging, and I don't know. There's kind of a dumb twist at the very end. It's not dumb. It's just like, yep, sure. But it still was quite delightful. It's also a book that's easy to come in and out of to read as you're doing stuff here and there. So check that out, Mouth to Mouth. It's a good book, available where it is. And with that, this as always has been Software Defined Talk. If you want to get the show notes for this episode, including links to the recommendations, the conferences we mentioned, articles and ideas, topics, philosophy, schools of thoughts, statistical sine waves and black swans that we discussed here, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/396. There's also a great Slack community if you are interested in participating in it. We get lots of sort of ideas of things that we talk about, the links, lots of discussion that goes on there with a great community there, all sorts of things going on. I would highlight the podcast production channel where we talk about podcast production. We also have a Chat GPT channel, which is pretty good. Brandon started that one, I think, and I have been delighted that it works. People keep writing in it. It's good.
They do.
And I think with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Well done. Just like riding a bike. Good job, Matt. You made it. I'm impressed with your power of multitasking.
Yeah.
I would have surely had the wrong mic on and had your entire meeting being broadcast over. So
that was the key.
I can tell you, it did not happen. We did not. You went blank, and I got no audio from you during that period of time. So good job. Well done.
I was briefly troubled by the fact that I was still getting audio from you guys in my headphones, but go to settings, change the audio output. It went away.
It all worked.
It all worked out well.
Good. All right. Well, good. You can write this up in the run book. If you have to leave the meeting or the recording,
don't leave the meeting.
You can't leave. You can't leave the recording and come back. You can come and you can mute yourself, but you cannot leave. Or maybe I need to test out to see what happens if someone does come in. Like, I don't know. How do I line up the audio?
Well, we could do it in the after show.
Yeah, no, this is good. I feel safe. I feel good. I feel like we have a nice, clean recording, and that's what I like. I like to keep the editing simple. So
yeah,
we're good to see some of Brian back. Yes, in fact, I saw Brian walking in the neighborhood the other day. So Brian, good to have you back as our faithful moderator, systems guy. He's always in, so it was good to see him here this week. I know he had to leave early. Anyone else? Let's see who else was in the chat. Anyone else make it? Oh, we got a bunch of people in here. All right, well, I just don't. Do I know any of the other ones? I don't know any of the other ones, but I'm glad you're here. So we'll be back probably recording. I mean, hopefully this time, most weeks. Maybe we could commit to that. I don't know. That seems like sufficiently nebulous that when we miss it, I can't, no one can complain.
That's the kind of commitment I can make. Mostly
we'll be here this week. I think everyone's vacations are mostly over for maybe the next few weeks. If not, just watch the Slack.
Yeah.
Well, travel, I guess. Travel where like you can't record it this time. It feels like I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe everyone will not do it. But we'll try to keep it around this time. I don't know, Cote. Are you committing? Are you traveling the world again?
No. I'm
gonna go scale. It sounds like you guys are going to both be in LA. So it sounds like there's going to be some type of that'll be a good one. Maybe you guys can record in person. Do a live.
I think VMware's already a platinum sponsor or something. So
All right. Well, Cote will even he'll have the podcast booth going then.
Yep.
There'll be some place with we may be invited. I won't mention the company yet until but we'll just tease it as like some company may invite us to a podcast summit, and they said we could come and we could learn about their company, and they'll have recording equipment all ready to go. All you have to do is bring an SD card. And I was like, so that's one of those things. Like I love that idea and do not trust it at all. Every time I've done like a live recording, which has not been many, if you don't bring your own equipment, you're leaving with nothing. You're leaving with a conversation you mentally had. Well, that has been my experience.
Yeah, that is true. And also it allows you to establish like an infamous lost episode that you can mention all the time. That only.
So maybe what you do is I actually would go to the conference and be like, hey, let's just say we recorded here and we lost it. And then I'm going to invite you on and we'll record later online. And we'll just be like, oh yeah, the episode that we did live was so good. You missed it, but we won't actually do it. Cause that's, the Slate people do that all the time. Even the Slate people who are professional podcasters, when they go to a show, they're always like, it turns out the audio didn't work. And they just like, and they, and they're like professionals. So no one can do it live.
And it'll be like, remember that great joke you told about tripods? Oh, so good.
So good.
Didn't see that one coming.
Tripod jokes kill every time.
Yeah.
All right. Everyone, thanks for the streamers hanging on. We'll see you next week. Until then, take care.
Bye-bye. Bye.